going on, guys? Welcome back. You made it. You're here on another weekly episode of Slim Jim Jammer's channel. It's your boy Jimmy out of Brooklyn. On today's program, we're gonna go back in time. We're gonna be talking about my childhood, and one of the wilder things about it, that my father was an animal trapper. Now, personally, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and anybody that was living around in the 1990s might remember up near Prospect Park, there used to be a Ghostbusters ambulance, but instead of being Ghostbusters, it said Critterbusters, and it was the trapping ambulance. When I was a kid, my father had, I don't know where he heard about it, maybe eBay. Guy was obsessed with eBay. He had heard about a hospital in rural Pennsylvania that was selling one of their old ambulances. And when I say they were selling one of their old ambulances, this was a 1968 Cadillac ambulance. It looked just like the one from the Ghostbusters, the big difference being that the ambulance we had actually had forward-facing fins with lights on them, where the Ghostbusters ambulance in the film only had the back-facing ones. Of course, they also had a huge unit they installed on top of the thing. My father had gotten a dome light we put on top of it, and we would roll through stoplights, throw on that siren. Woo! One time, actually, we got pulled over by the cops. I mean, everywhere we would go, when we would ride around in that Ghostbusters ambulance, every single place you go. People on the street corners, just like the movie. Ghostbusters! If you watch the movie Ghostbusters, it's sort of wild. It was a phenomenon. They were obsessed with the Ghostbusters in the movie. They were super popular running around town. Everybody was so amped about it. The reception of the film was equal, to the point where when we would drive around in this ambulance, everywhere we go, we hear people on the street, Ghostbusters! And we'd be like flipping the siren and stuff like that. One time we actually got pulled over by the cops when we had gone through a red light with the siren on. And I mean, this is an old-timey siren from the 60s. It sounds different than the sirens now. We get pulled over by the cops after we went through the red light. Guy comes over, knocks on the glass, looks at us, and he goes, "Who you gonna call?" So that was pretty cool times. So we had this Ghostbusters ambulance. There was also a big pickup truck that he had. And we would use the pickup truck and the ambulance to go around in Brooklyn, upstate New York, and the surrounding boroughs as well of New York City, doing nuisance wildlife control. So my father was an animal trapper, and he would do live capture, and typically he would be capture and release these animals. There were certain animals that he was required to turn into the city, and the city would do with them what they were legally required to do. But for the most part, he would relocate the animals. If he caught a squirrel in Brooklyn, he'd take it across the river to Manhattan. Squirrels can't swim, that sort of deal. He would trap all around in Brooklyn. When I was a kid, we would mouse-proof people's houses, squirrels in your backyard, possum in the attic. One time he took a fighting rooster out from somebody's backyard with the sharpened talons and the beak and everything. Another time, apparently, he had gone on a job where there was a chimpanzee in an apartment, full-grown chimpanzee, and he tried to tackle the thing, and it bit him on the hand. He had the chimpanzee scar, and it threw him into the wall. And then he decided to just tranquilize some bananas. So he ate the bananas, and then he just came and tied up Dave after that. He had another time there was a mountain lion that he found in someone's apartment. Both the chimpanzee and the mountain lion had been abandoned. More than likely were trophy pets of some wild drug lord or something like that. When he would trap around in Brooklyn, he had all different sorts of techniques he would teach me when we'd be stuffing up the holes in people's houses and stuff like that, making sure that the mice couldn't get in, mouse proofing. When he would do the trapping for people around the area, the nuisance wildlife trapping, he would charge a really high amount of money for it. I remember at the time thinking to myself, he would charge like $750, I remember, to do what could have been done in like an hour's worth of labor in the mid-90s. I remember asking my dad, I said, how can you possibly charge this amount of money for this stuff? And he goes, people can't do this on their own. They gotta call me. They have to. They're not gonna grab the animal out by themselves. I'll charge what the market will bear. Well, because he charged that amount of money, he felt like he had to do a certain amount of work, or the people would feel like he was grafting them. If he went and set some traps in somebody's backyard for an animal, and say he caught the animal in the very first time he got there, he wouldn't tell them he caught that animal. He would take that animal out quickly and like secretly, and he'd lay another trap, and he'd leave that trap empty, and they'd be like, and they came in and they'd say, "Oh, did you catch the animal yet?" He'd go, "Oh no, I didn't catch it yet. I guess I gotta set some more traps." And he would set the traps and come in repeatedly to go to check the traps, and he'd do this over like a 2-week period, and then finally he would say, "Oh, I we finally caught him. Sometimes he would take a squirrel from one job that he caught a squirrel on one person's property, but he's like, oh, the other people are expecting a squirrel. So he'd bring the squirrel over to somebody. Hey, look, we got the squirrel for you. Here's a squirrel, and she was it was tearing up your backyard, my guy. There was a whole technique and maneuvers that were happening in order to make this business work. One of the things that he really liked to do that was, in his mind, easy pickings, but I can understand why people didn't want to do it themselves, was that we would do removals. And when I say that we would do removals, the idea would be if you had an animal die in your property, you would call us. We'd come and pick it up and take it out. He had one time that he had to wrestle a deer out of someone's property. They had it gotten stuck on a barbed wire fence. There was one time that I went with him and we actually had to pick up like a stray cat that had died in someone's garage. And he was like, hey, Jim, you want to check this out? You got to be careful. You don't ever know how long it's been in here. But I asked and they said it'd probably been in here a while. They don't really use the garage. So if it's at least a week, you got to be careful. Check this out, guy. And he came and he got a stick and he picked up the cat with the stick. Whole bottom of the thing falls out. It's all like maggots and stuff. I'm like 8 or 9 years old. I'm just and he's like, yeah, all I gotta do is just nothing. He chucked it in a bag. Get a shovel, shovel up these bad boys, shovel up the stuff. We just kind of give it a little wash down, put some like chemicals on the ground and stuff. And he's like, now let's get out of here. And you would think he would like have some sort of special method for disposing of something like that. Threw it right in the trash can. On the street corner in New York. Hey, put it in a trash can. Come on. It's in New York. You think the sanitation guys ain't seen worse than a trash can in New York than a dead cat? We would also go to sell traps. And when we would sell traps, we would sell these mouse and rat traps that were box traps, live capture traps. And we would go to Chinatown to get them. And we'd get them wholesale. And my father saying, bet in Chinatown I know a thing or two about catching rats. I don't know why if that's racist or sounds prejudiced, sounds awful. We went down there, we get these things like wholesale. We would drive out to these trapping conventions all around the country to go and sell these traps. We would mark them up like 5 times. But with the amount of labor and driving, one time we drove out all the way to Iowa. It was 22 hours to get to this trapping convention that we drove to. Into these really rural people where I'm selling a trap to them over a trapping convention that lasts 3 days. You might have one customer that comes back on 3 separate days to look at the same product that costs $12. And they're spending like 45 minutes in each trip that they come to see and examine it, looking at every intricacy, before they decide to spend the thing. And then you gotta soft pedal, sell some of the guys, you gotta hard sell some of them. It was very, very strange. I sort of learned like how to be a salesman. My father put me in charge of the little stall at that point. But these conventions, you'd see some wild stuff. Obviously, a lot of like skulls and furs. My father had become friends with a guy named Johnny Thorpe, who was actually, I believe he was the son of Jim Thorpe. He's an older guy. And Jim Thorpe, the famous Olympian, the guy was a mountain man, and he taught my father a lot of old classic tricks to catch animals in the woods. And then for fun, the guy would carve totem poles with a chainsaw. So that was a classic. Took a girlfriend one time to go to one of these conventions from New York City, from Brooklyn. And that was a mistake when I was in high school. When we went to this convention, I'm trying to be like, hey, what do you want to do? Yeah. We're looking at some of the different art that they have and looking at the different, guns and knives, assorted taxidermy, weird taxidermy they would have. Squirrel giving the middle finger or something like that. And I remember I was like, oh yeah, there's something really cool and exciting. They have events that go on. If you want to see one of the events, we could go to the barefoot trap setting contest. And when I say the barefoot trap setting contest, this would be like those bear traps, the ones with the big jaws that you'd see in a cartoon when you were a kid. The jaws of these traps are so hard to actually pry open that the only way you could pry open these jaws is if you jumped in the air and you landed on the legs of the thing and you'd open it up. And when I say barefoot trap setting contest, you want to be a real man. You want to prove you got something. Or a real woman, because there was men's and women's division, and there was men's and women's, and then kids, boys and girls division. You jump in the air, barefoot, set that trap, it could break your ankle, it could bite off a piece of meat on you. What are you gonna do? Come on, you gotta make sure you got what it takes, my guy. So that was one of the events you could have gone to see. I remember I say to her, hey, why don't we go to see the skinning demonstration? And the skinning demonstration was them making a pelt from an animal. So we walk up to the tent, which I remember, of course, is closed. The tent was closed so that you don't get bugs and flies and things going into it. Right outside the tent was all of the animals that had gotten their fur removed, which is horrifying. horrifying, horrible sight. But I'm not connecting this because I'd grown up around this with my father. She sees it as she's freaking out. Maybe we shouldn't go in there. It doesn't seem seems a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I understand. But I don't even really need to describe it. It can be relatively gruesome. I mean, they come in, they remove the fur from the thing. I remember even at the time, she goes, it seems like it'd be a little bit, And my response was, what? Yeah, there's no blood. They already bled it. It's been pre-bled. What's the big deal? But, different strokes for different folks. This is why, definitely had a little bit more of a rural upbringing personally, even though I grew up in New York City and grew up in Brooklyn, but having all this experience trapping animals. Wild times, my guy. One time my father came home with a brown bat in a cage, put it down on the counter, then we had some hot dogs. Another time he was actually gonna hire me to work in a garage. And when I was gonna work in this garage, there was rats in the garage. So my father goes, yeah, I'm gonna set all the traps and I'll put bait in the traps and you don't have to worry about where the traps are. All you need to do to worry is you gotta go check the traps, and then when you got a rat in the trap, you gotta go kill the rat. And that was gonna be my job, to go kill the rat. And I was like, what? I gotta go kill the rat. How am I gonna kill the rat? He goes, well, it's not like another animal. Other animals you can catch or release them, but rats you're required. You gotta kill them. These are pest animals. Well, a rat can breathe underwater for a very long time. The best way to kill them is to drown them. And if you're gonna do that, you gotta put them in a big, giant vat of water for like 45 minutes. And after that, they'll be good, or done. So when you're gonna go to catch these rats, you should bring a baseball bat. I said, a baseball bat? He goes, yeah, baseball bat, because, once the rats get on to the fact that you're the guy coming through to kill them, they're gonna start to attack you. Never did end up getting that job. Father had a falling out with the owner of their garage. Happy about that, and traumatizing experiences had by all. Another time we had mice in our house. We would catch animals every other place. We actually get mice in our house. I remember my father, he goes, I'm gonna leave it to you to catch the mice, little guy. You catch the mice in the house, big boy. I'll give you the means to catch them. We got traps galore, or you catch them. So I had to catch these mice, and he gave me 3 choices to catch the mice. One choice was a box trap, one choice was a snap trap, and one choice was a glue pad. The glue pads, you just put them on the floor and stick them against the wall. The snap traps, you actually have to bend open, and you gotta bait them. If you set the trap wrong, you can snap it on your hand. Box trap, similarly, you gotta set and bait the thing, but it didn't hurt you. I decided to use the glue trap at the time because it was the easiest trap to use. I said, I'll just use the glue trap because all I gotta do is open it up, put it down, that's that. After the fact, the mice get caught in the glue trap, and my father goes, oh, now you gotta go kill the mice. And I say, why do I gotta go kill the mice? He goes, well, if you use the snap trap, the mice would have been killed by the trap itself, and then you would have just had to throw them in the trash. If you'd used the box trap, you wouldn't have been able to go release the mice a couple of streets away. Because you use the glue trap, you have to kill the mice, because they can't get off that glue. You don't want them to be tortured. So I said, what am I supposed to kill the mice? He goes, you got to go up back, you got to step on them. Put them in a trash bag and step on a trash bag. Again, lovely things to be teaching your small children. And I went out, I had to go around the back at 8 years old or something like this. Kill the mouse. So I am doing comedy videos on the internet or talking in traumatic tones years later. Ridiculous. Outlandish. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate each and every one of you, and you mean a lot to me. Make sure you stay tuned every week. We'll be back with new content. Like, subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram at SlimJimJammer. See you next time, my guy.